Everyone in the capital knew that Shen Qiubai was someone poisoned to a short life. I chased after him for 11 years and finally made an elixir to extend his life. But when I rushed through the snow to deliver the medicine, he was utterly uninterested, feeding it to the dog instead. To make the princess happy, he forced me to kneel in front of the dog. Later, heartbroken, I gave the last elixir to his older brother and married him. Who would have thought Shen Qiubai went mad? He lay sickly outside my door, coughing up blood from the pain, just to see me. You clearly said you would only marry me, but I stroked his pale, paper-thin face and said, but I also said I don't want to be a widow. I finally made the antidote that could save Shen Qiubai. Without even putting on a cloak, I rushed through the strong wind and heavy snow, heading straight for Wangyu Tower. At the familiar private room door, there was a large yellow dog lying there. I recognized this dog. It belonged to Princess Changhe, and she often followed Shen Qiubai around. Shen Qiubai, I've made the antidote. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at me. After a moment, Zhao Jiyue covered her mouth with a handkerchief and mocked first. Second young Master Shen. Time for another test. Let's see if Miss Xie's medicine works this time. She was the daughter of Prince Ning, named Princess Changhe at 15, highly favored by the royal family. The noble sons of the city always flattered her. When she spoke, everyone immediately scoffed at the elixir in my hand. Shen Qiubai lazily glanced at me, a faint look of disdain on his pale face. Jiang Yao, how many times do I have to tell you? Stop with this nonsense. Shen Qiubai's father was the prime minister. To protect the emperor, his father had sent his two sons to replace the crown prince and the third prince, who were captured by enemy forces. In the end, the two princes were unharmed. But when the two young masters of the Shen family were rescued, they had been poisoned. The poison was called a mortal's dream, with no known cure. The royal physician predicted they wouldn't survive past 25. This wasn't the first time I had made Shen Qiubai try the medicine. I had been chasing after him for a full 11 years. After learning he was my short-lived fiancé, I immersed myself in medical books, guarding the medicine furnace, vowing to make the antidote before Shen Qiubai turned 25. At first, Shen Qiubai was very kind to me. He knew I couldn't make the antidote, but he still patiently cooperated with me. He would even comfort me when I failed. It's fine, 25 is still far away. I still have many years to live. Yao Yao, don't rush. But gradually, as I failed more and more, Shen Qiubai's health grew worse, and his attitude became colder. Others said I didn't understand medicine at all. I was just using the excuse of making the antidote to keep bothering Shen Qiubai. But this time was different. I hadn't slept for nearly 5 days and finally made the only 2 pills. Ignoring the mocking voices, I looked up at Shen Qiubai, speaking firmly. This is the last time. Try again. I'm 99% sure it will work. Seeing my determination, Shen Qiubai lazily extended his hand. Give it to me. I carefully poured out the pill and placed it in his palm. He took the pill, then suddenly called out, "Big Yellow." The big yellow dog at the door, hearing his voice, wagged its tail and ran in, hopping in front of him, playfully. He, however, shoved the pill into the dog's mouth. "Here, Big Yellow, try it. Is it sweet?" He smiled, teasing the dog. I stood frozen, unable to react in time to stop him. The immortal's dream poison was extremely potent, and the antidote was made with poison to counteract it. By the time I realized, the dog, named Big Yellow, had swallowed the pill entirely. Tears welled up in my eyes as I rushed to hug Big Yellow, desperately trying to make it vomit the pill out. But Zhao Jiyue was unhappy. "Big Yellow, come here." The dog, responding to its owner's call, broke free from my grasp and ran back to her. Shen Qiubai furrowed his brows, a hint of displeasure in his voice. "Enough, Jiang Yao, how embarrassing. The poison even the royal physician couldn't cure, and you're trying to show off." Only then did I realize I had spent so long struggling with the dog, completely drenched and looking a mess. I had become like those who mocked me. He too didn't believe me. My heart ached terribly, mixed with a sharp pain. At that moment, Zhao Jue suddenly screamed. What happened to Big Yellow? I saw the dog collapse, foaming at the mouth, convulsing violently. Zhao Jue clutched her collar with one hand, pointing at me with the other, her voice shaking. Your medicine? Shen Xiaobai's face turned cold as he looked at me, his voice hoarse with disbelief. You gave me poison medicine? The crowd murmured in shock. I opened my mouth but had no words to say. Shen Xiaobai tightly grabbed my wrist and dragged me toward Big Yellow. Quick, save it. I lowered my head in defeat. It was no use. Big Yellow was beyond saving. Someone, out of fear, blurted out. I can't even imagine. If Shen Gongzi had taken this medicine, he would probably already dead. But what did they know? The antidote, made with poison, only targeted a mortal's dream. For an ordinary person, it was indeed lethal. But clearly, Shen Xiaobai only trusted their words. He looked at me with cold eyes, his words frosty. I've told you so many times, your worthless skills can't save me. Why keep forcing yourself? Why? Because I don't want the one I cared for in my youth to die young. Because I don't want to start mourning while still young. I spent countless days and nights just to create this small amount of medicine and braved the wind and snow to deliver it to him. With a single word, unskilled, he casually dismissed everything I had done. I swallowed hard, unwilling to accept it, and retorted. What if the medicine could really save you? Shen Xiaobai's gaze was filled with disappointment. Jiang Yao, given the situation, are you still trying to argue? Zhao Jue slowly crouched down, staring at the dog. Big Yellow, someone is deliberately trying to harm you. It's all so unexpected. She hugged the dog, crying pitifully, her face full of sorrow that made me almost feel sorry for her. Shen Xiaobai rubbed his temples, seeming exhausted, and helplessly questioned me. Yao Yao, you've harmed a living creature. What now? I lifted my head to look at him, my voice cold. Do you want me to pay with my life? For a moment, he was speechless. I am the legitimate daughter of the Minister of the Left. No matter what, it would never be my place to die for a dog. Moreover, the one who killed Big Yellow was never me from the start. The room was silent except for the occasional sobs from Zhao Jue. Shen Xiaobai remained silent for a moment before finally, as if making a decision, he furrowed his brows and said, You kneel and apologize to Big Yellow. I stared at him in shock. To appease Zhao Jue, he was willing to humiliate me like this. Zhao Jue immediately stopped crying and slowly stood up. It was clear that, compared to being sad for the dog, she wanted to see me humiliated. She softly spoke to me. Jiang Yao, you killed Big Yellow. If it could receive your apology from the underworld, it would surely rest in peace. Before she finished speaking, she once again pretended to be heartbroken, her eyes welling with tears. Shen Xiaobai's thin lips parted slightly, urging me. Jiang Yao, be obedient, kneel now. I trembled in my gaze and slowly lifted my head, looking at him anew. The noble families in the capital had known each other since childhood. Though Shen Xiaobai was frail as a child, he was always warm-hearted. I had a round face, soft and chubby, unlike other girls, and often I was teased. They called me little fat girl, saying I ate more than a pig. At that time, Shen Xiaobai, though weak himself, would always protect me. He made the other children apologize to me. The whole capital knew that Shen Xiaobai was a poisoned, short-lived man. He was also someone whom the royal family owed protection to. If anyone provoked this ancestor, their entire family might suffer the consequences. So, throughout the entire capital, no one dared to offend him. Everyone feared that a single cough, a small illness, could lead to their downfall. But now, kneel and apologize to the princess. Kneel and apologize to Big Yellow. Shen Xiaobai's voice grew colder, pulling me out of my thoughts. The sharp blade that once protected me now turned to stab me, and the pain was infinitely worse. I pressed my lips tightly together, saying nothing. Zhao Jue cried, waiting for me to comply, but eventually lost patience. If you won't do it, then I'll have to take action. She signaled to the maid. With a thud, someone kicked the back of my knee, and I uncontrollably knelt to the ground. 3 years ago, when I went out to find medicine for Shen Xiaobai, I fell into a mountain stream and broke my leg. Since then, that leg has never fully healed and cannot endure further injury or prolonged kneeling. He knew this. Back then, he had stayed by my side, heartbroken for several days. And now, as pain shot through my leg, and after struggling several times to stand, I could only look at him through tear-filled eyes. Shen Xiaobai, however, merely turned his gaze away. He silently allowed Zhao Jiyue to hurt and humiliate me. How laughable. So laughable. I didn't expect, just then, a deep voice to suddenly sound at the door. Stop. I turned to look at the door. A man, draped in a dark cloak, emerged through the wind and snow. His complexion was pale, but he had an astonishingly beautiful appearance. He glanced briefly at me, kneeling on the floor, then reached out with a hand that didn't seem that warm. Get up. His fingers were cool. Indeed, not very warm, but enough to help me rise. Once I stood, he shielded me behind him and turned to face Shen Xiaobai. Why are you bullying her? Shen Xiaobai's face froze. The uninvited guest in front of me was none other than his eldest brother, Shen Yanzhi. Years ago, when Shen's father had guarded the emperor and sent his two sons to take the place of the crown prince and third prince to suffer, Shen Xiaobai had taken the place of the third prince, and Shen Yanzhi had taken the place of the crown prince. These two brothers were poisoned together. The difference was, Shen Xiaobai had been sickly since childhood and had lived a carefree life, while Shen Yanzhi, at 17, entered the imperial examination, rose 3 times in 5 years, and now held the position of the Deputy Minister of Justice. He was exceptionally handsome, but unfortunately, even the most outstanding beauty could not escape the fate of a short life. Moreover, he was older than Shen Xiaobai, and the time the doctors had predicted was now only 3 years away. In my memory, Shen Yanzhi rarely smiled, always quiet and distant. I was not familiar with him, so I never expected that today, the one who would offer me a hand would be him, not Shen Xiaobai. In the tense silence, Zhao Jiyue spoke first. Brother Yanzhi, it was Jiang Yao who killed my dog. She quickly explained the situation, adding fuel to the fire with her anger. Isn't Big Yellow's life worth at least an apology from her? As a princess, no one dared to question her words. Shen Yanzhi quietly listened and then looked at Shen Xiaobai with cold eyes. Is this true, as the princess says? Shen Xiaobai idly played with the jade pendant in his hand and replied lazily, yes. Everyone else stood by, watching the scene unfold. I instinctively moved a little further from Shen Yanzhi. Even though he helped me, I didn't expect that he would disregard the princess's face and his own brother for my sake. But then, unexpectedly, Shen Yanzhi coldly said, kneel and apologize to Miss Jiang. Everyone froze. Shen Xiaobai furrowed his brows. What are you saying, brother? Shen Yanzhi, thin and frail, but like an immovable mountain, stood firmly in front of me. First, Miss Jiang braved the snow to bring you the medicine. Not only did you not show gratitude, but you also fed her goodwill to a dog. Second, Big Yellow died unjustly, but the medicine was fed to it by you personally. If anyone should atone, it should be you. Third, in front of everyone, you've been unreasonable, targeting Miss Jiang and disgracing yourself. Everything today began because of you. Do you have any rebuttal? Shen Xiaobai was speechless. His older brother understood all the causal reasoning he had just mentioned. But in front of me, Shen Xiaobai had long since gotten used to his high and mighty position. How could he ever humble himself? In the past, when Shen Xiaobai was suffering from an illness, he would mock his life as meaningless. I would comfort him gently, finding every way to make him happy. When he tried to harm himself with a dagger, it was I, ignoring the danger, who took the knife from his hand as it aimed at his neck. At that moment, he stared at my blood-soaked hands and the deep wound visible to the bone, finally terrified and calming down. He held my hand, his eyes red with pain. I was wrong. Yao Yao, I shouldn't have hurt myself, and I shouldn't have hurt you. I was just in so much pain. I couldn't hold on any longer. I told him, word by word. Shen Xiaobai, the marriage between the Shen and Jiang families is well known throughout the capital. I will marry you. I don't want to become a widow. So if you trust me, I will make the antidote to save you. He buried his head in my neck, weak and pitiful. After a long while, he finally swallowed and said faintly, "Okay." That was the only time he apologized to me. The cost of that apology was that from then on, my right hand was permanently disabled and could never bear weight again. And it left behind an ugly, terrifying scar, one that caused ridicule wherever I went. Later, he gradually became drawn to Zhao Jiyue. Zhao Jiyue was beautiful but proud and willful. She never cared about Shen Qiubai's health. When angry, she would hit him, make him sick from being out in the rain, and never show any tenderness. When happy, she would take him to drink heavily in the streets or gamble away large sums of money. She taught him to experience life in the thrill and excitement, feeling the pounding of his heart. For this, Shen Qiubai fainted several times, almost losing his life. I urged him to treasure his life and stop fooling around, but he said it was Zhao Jiyue who made him feel alive. Unlike me, boring and dull, who could only sit by the medicine stove, constantly reminding him of his short life. He had grown tired of me, and he had forgotten how to bow his head to me. Now, he was unable to back down, his face filled with anger. He looked up at me, his tone mocking. Yao Yao wouldn't be mad at me, right? She couldn't bear for me to kneel, could she? Hearing that, a sharp pain pierced my heart, and my face grew more embarrassed. Shen Qiubai, when did my love for you become something you could use to bully me? Seeing me silent, he sneered and turned to Shen Yanzhi. Brother, do you know? Her medicine was poisonous. If Big Yellow hadn't taken the blow for me today, I would be dead. I suddenly lifted my head, emphasizing once again. That was just using poison to counteract poison. Shen Qiubai's expression turned weary. Jiang Yao, how have you become so shameless? Big Yellow is dead, with no one to back up your claims. If you keep insisting the antidote works, I have nothing else to say. Do as you wish. The room fell silent. At that moment, a gust of winter wind blew through the half-open window. Shen Yanzhi, whose body was weak, had already come in through the snow, and as the wind blew, he started coughing. The attendant immediately helped him sit down, closed the window, and offered him hot tea. The tension continued. Everyone else was too afraid to even breathe, waiting for Shen Yanzhi to speak. Unable to swallow the humiliation any longer, I took out another vial of medicine from my pouch and walked toward Shen Yanzhi. Lord Shaoqing, I have another antidote. Please have several renowned doctors or imperial physicians verify it and restore my honor and justice. Shen Yanzhi calmly stared at me for quite a while. Just when I thought he was about to reprimand me for causing trouble, he suddenly reached out and took my vial. With his long, defined fingers, he uncorked it and took out the pill. In front of everyone, he actually put the pill in his mouth. I froze. Everyone else's faces turned pale. Lord Shaoqing. I stared at him, my hands trembling. Shen Yanzhi, however, smiled faintly, shaking the now empty vial, his voice clear. Why bother with doctors? Aren't I the best candidate? I understood. The poisoned ones were not just Shen Qiubai. Shen Yanzhi's poisoning was even deeper, his life expectancy even shorter. But he rarely complained or showed weakness in public. He was too smart for anyone to feel truly sorry for him. Instead, people just pitied him. Seeing Shen Yanzhi swallow the pill, everyone around us held their breath, worried he would collapse right there. Why are you helping me like this? When I finally spoke, my voice was hoarse. Shen Yanzhi leaned back in his chair, tilting his head to look at me, a faint smile playing at the corners of his eyes. It's nothing. 1, I trust you. 2, I can't stand seeing them bully you. A wave of emotions surged in my chest. I felt so pathetic. When Zhao Jiyue had forced me to kneel, when Shen Qiubai had publicly crushed my feelings, I had held back my tears. But hearing Shen Yanzhi's words, I couldn't hold it in anymore and tears fell. Shen Yanzhi, always composed, looked a bit dazed when he saw me cry. Without thinking, he raised his hand, using his cool fingers to gently stroke the corner of my eyes. I froze, my body stiffening. Just then, I heard Shen Xiaobai's gritted voice from behind. Jiang Yao, come here. I ignored him. Shen Xiaobai suddenly lost his temper. In a fit of rage, he threw the brazier and kicked over the table. Ash and tea spilled all over the ground. His face darkened as he approached, grabbing me by the arm and pulling me away from Shen Yanzhi, trying to drag me into his arms. But his clothes were soaked with Zhao Jiyue's perfume. I felt disgusted. Let go of me. He wouldn't let me push him away, deliberately challenging me. Finally, he saw the tears on my face. He froze for a moment, his tone slightly softened but still carrying an air of arrogance. Crying? How delicate. Now you're scared? Earlier, when I asked you to apologize to Yaya, you stubbornly refused. Don't think just because I protected you before, you can take advantage of me. I couldn't bear to listen anymore, and I raised my hand, slapping him across the face. Shen Xiaobai, men and women should keep their distance. In front of everyone, him and I were engaged in such a tug-of-war. What does that say about my reputation? In the large private room of Wang Yuelu, the slap resounded loudly. Everyone gasped in shock. Shen Xiaobai touched the half of his face I had slapped, his expression darkening. Keep their distance? He suppressed his anger. Who doesn't know about the marriage between the Jiang and Shen families? Jiang Yao, from the moment you were born, you've been mine. My mind buzzed, my eyes widened in fury, and my body shook with rage. In my anger, I actually laughed slowly. Oh, then what about Zhao Jiyue? Who does she belong to? Only then did Shen Xiaobai remember that Zhao Jiyue was standing nearby, watching him. He turned to look at her. Yeah, that's not what I meant. But Zhao Jiyue had already reddened eyes, staring at him in grievance, almost shredding the handkerchief in her hand. And then the unexpected happened. Shen Yanzhi, who had just taken the medicine, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The servant immediately knelt down in shock. Miss Jiang, could there really be something wrong with your medicine? All these years, our master has always trusted you. Please, you must not harm him. Zhao Jiyue seemed to have found her leverage and pointed at me. Jiang Yao, not only did you harm Da Huang, but you also poisoned Master Yanzhi. The noise was deafening. No one even allowed me to explain. Luckily, amidst the chaos, a weak reprimand came from the side. Quiet. It was Shen Yanzhi. He was still alive. He calmly wiped the blood from his lips and glanced at Zhao Jiyue with a cold gaze. Who, exactly, is always wishing for my death? Zhao Jiyue was caught off guard, unable to respond. I quickly went to check on Shen Yanzhi, but he grabbed my hand first, his gaze carrying some apology. Just now, I didn't scare you, did I? Scare me? Why would he ask that? I shook my head, immediately taking his pulse and explaining. The method of using poison to counteract poison, while it can save a person, is extremely dangerous. Master Yanzhi has been poisoned for years, so even with the blood-spitting symptom, there's no need to panic. It's just part of the detoxification process. But tonight, Master Yanzhi may fall into a deep sleep. For the next 7 days, there will be feverish symptoms. During the following half-month, extra care is needed. No cold, no fatigue, no excessive drinking, and no eating cold or cooling food. Shen Yanzhi rested his chin in his hand and lazily remarked, There are too many things I can't do. My servant is clumsy and forgetful. What if he accidentally kills me? I was stunned. What did he mean by that? He continued, Why don't I officially send an invitation and ask Miss Jiang to come to the residence to check on me and stay for a while? Stay in his house directly? Shen Yanzhi bet his life to clear my name. As a doctor, it wasn't inappropriate to go care for a patient. But I instinctively glanced at Shen Xiaobai. His gaze was icy, locked on my hand as I took Shen Yanzhi's pulse, filled with fury and jealousy, as if he wanted to devour me. It was both pitiful and laughable. Shen Xiaobai, oh Shen Xiaobai. The one humiliated, whose feelings were trampled, was me. The one who fed the antidote to the dog was you. Now, because of a twist of fate, my medicine didn't save you, but rather saved your brother. What do you have to be angry about? And I really want to know, when you eventually find out that the only antidote capable of saving your life was the one you personally trampled on today, what expression will you have? Under Shen Xiaobai's murderous gaze, I agreed to Shen Yanzhi's request to visit the Shen residence in 3 days. Until I limped out of Wangguolu, Shen Xiaobai didn't say a word of kindness. He just stared at me gloomily, as if I were the one who had betrayed him. On the other hand, Shen Yanzhi, as the elder brother, apologized on his behalf. Shen Yanzhi instructed his servant to deliver an invitation to my home, arrange the necessary gifts, and handle all the complicated matters. He also made arrangements to properly bury Da Huang's body. When I left Wangguolu, he had already had the carriage prepared and sent me a fluffy big cloak. Miss, Master Yanzhi asked me to send this cloak. It's very cold outside. Please don't catch a cold. Thank you. I got into the carriage and lifted the curtain. I saw Shen Yanzhi standing under the snowy eaves, watching me leave. He was pale and slim, elegant and captivating, as if he had merged with the snow. When he met my gaze, his expression softened, and a gentle smile curved his lips. Miss Jiang, I'll be waiting in 3 days. Was it an illusion? The person who seemed so cold and solitary now smiled, and it was like a spring breeze, making me think of the phrase, I saw a wounded crane through the window, just like looking up at the spring terrace. When I returned home, the tension I had been holding onto finally broke, and I crawled under the blanket, crying my heart out. I cried until my head was dizzy, and only then did I fall into a confused sleep. In my dreams, Shen Xiaobai still loved me at the beginning. He said he hated the winters in the capital and promised that once he got better, he would take me to Jiangnan, find a small town, buy a large house, and plant peach, apricot, and pear trees. In spring, we'd enjoy the flowers and bask in the sun. In summer, we'd nap in rocking chairs and enjoy the cool breeze. In autumn, we'd pick fruit and make wine. By winter, he would lazily hold me, cuddling under the covers, sleeping until noon. The more he said, the more shameless he became, and I hurriedly covered his mouth, blushing, asking him to stop. But he pulled my hand back, smiled with his brows raised. Hey, Miss Jiang, you're so skilled with your hands. If I really make it to the coming-of-age ceremony, you have to carve a hairpin for me and make me a pair of shoes. I asked. A hairpin as a gift is acceptable, but why shoes? His smile deepened. Are you silly? When I marry you, I'll use the hairpin you made to mark my coming of age, and wear the shoes you gave me. That way, from head to toe, I'll belong to you, Jiang Yao. I was amused by his playful words, laughing heartily before intentionally putting on a serious face and saying that I had no time to indulge him in such things. But by the next day, I had brought out the jade that my father had kept for years, anxiously pondering what design I should carve for him. That was the man who had once made my heart flutter, Shen Xiaobai. In the past, nothing could compare to the springtime joy I felt with him. But then, a shift in the dream happened. He suddenly transformed into someone impatient. Not being able to make the antidote is one thing, but I never expected you to actually save me. You know medicine. Why don't you treat your own right hand? Are you wearing that scar to constantly remind me that I owe you? Jiang Yao, don't be so scheming. Don't worry, Yaya is a princess. She's too carefree to care about fighting for the position of Mrs. Shen with you. And I won't marry Yaya. With my condition, marrying her would only harm her. Jiang Yao, how have you become so shameless? Kneel down and apologize to Yaya. I woke up suddenly from the dream, my face drenched in tears, my chest aching terribly. Mother said I was under the influence of a nightmare, having slept for a full 10 hours, laughing and crying in my dreams, scaring her half to death. Just as I was about to comfort her, Mother, with tears in her eyes, spoke again. You still want to hide it from me? The fact that you and Shen Xiaobai had a falling out at Wanghua Tower has already spread throughout the capital. Does your leg still hurt? That ungrateful Shen Xiaobai. How dare he treat you like this? Indeed, so many people had been at Wangyue Tower at the time. In the end, the truth couldn't be concealed. I had been publicly humiliated by my own fiancé and had become the laughingstock of the entire capital overnight. My reputation was completely ruined. So, perhaps it was better to let this fire burn completely. Mother, I won't marry him. Mother froze. What? I forced a smile, my eyes red, and, with surprising calmness, said, Shen Xiaobai is tainted. Mother, he's not worthy of me. I don't want him anymore. When I was still in swaddling clothes, the Jiang and Shen families had verbally agreed to a marriage. But who could have expected that both of Shen's legitimate sons would be poisoned, and the Shen family was on the brink of extinction? The royal family wanted to offer rewards and comfort. When they heard about the engagement between our families, they feared that my father might think the Shen family's sons had short lives and would change his mind about marrying me. So they granted the marriage. For more than 10 years, I had never spoken the words that I didn't want to marry. But now, Mother understood that Shen Xiaobai had hurt me deeply. She patted my hand and said, all right, I understand. I'll have your father think of a solution. As she massaged my injured leg and wiped away her tears, she asked, what about Shen Yanzhi? He sent an invitation, asking you to go to the Shen residence to treat him. Will you still go? I replied seriously. I will still go to see Shen Yanzhi. He's not like Shen Xiaobai. He helped me first, and right now is the crucial moment for the antidote. For both emotional and logical reasons, I must go. Mother nodded in agreement. So, I shut out the outside world, eating and sleeping, resting peacefully for 3 days. Before leaving for the Shen residence, Mother couldn't hold back and said to me, the imperial decree is hard to refuse. Your father says there's little room to maneuver regarding the marriage with the Shen family. Have you thought about it? Actually, Shen Yanzhi is much more promising than Shen Xiaobai. He's only 22, already holding the position of junior minister. If his health improves and he stays in power for a few more years, he could become a close advisor to the emperor. Yao, love may hurt, but power and influence won't. With this, I finally understood my mother's intentions. Mother, I understand. I'll think carefully. Mother was, indeed, planning the most clever way to resolve this. Actually, hadn't I thought about it for myself, too? The moment I decided to let go of Shen Xiaobai, I had made up my mind. If marrying into the Shen family is inevitable, then even if I can't have love, at least having dignity and respect will be good. The imperial decree only mentioned that the eldest daughter of the Jiang family was destined to marry the eldest son of the Shen family. But the Shen family has more than one legitimate son. There is also Shen Yanzhi. The question now was whether he would still be willing to help me again. I went to the Shen residence to treat Shen Yanzhi. But as soon as I entered the back courtyard, I ran into Shen Qiubai and Zhao Jiyue. At first, neither of them saw me. Zhao Jiyue was crying, her eyes swollen, as she argued with Shen Qiubai. Why did you ask me to come? Your fiancé killed my big yellow dog, and your brother is publicly protecting her, humiliating me. Now the whole city is saying I killed my own dog, and that I prevented you from getting the antidote. I can't show my face anymore. I'd rather die. While crying and ranting, she stormed to the lakeside, threatening to jump in. Shen Qiubai quickly chased after her, speaking gently to comfort her. I've got you a new dog, one that looks just like Big Yellow. Take a look, see if you like it. He opened a cloth bag, and 2 faint whimpers followed as a small yellow puppy popped its head out. When Zhao Jiyue saw the puppy, she finally stopped crying, breaking into a smile. Shen Qiubai then pulled out 2 pieces of jerky for her to feed the dog. But the little thing, still startled, refused to eat from her hand and bit her instead, running off in a panic. By accident, it ran right to my feet. Only then did Shen Qiubai notice me. He frowned slightly, looking at me with an expression of disbelief. Jiang Yao, what are you doing here? You're not here to cause a scene again, are you? The princess's dog was poisoned by you. I'm comforting her, which is also for your good. Can you stop being so unreasonable? If you keep being troublesome, you're only demeaning yourself. Demeaning myself? So, in his eyes, I had already become this kind of person. Fine. It doesn't matter now. His opinion doesn't matter anymore. Shen Xiaobai, I have no intention of disturbing you and the princess. You, too, continue. Shen Xiaobai seemed unaccustomed to my understanding, frowning and grabbing my hand. What are you up to now? I pulled my hand free. Shen Xiaobai, I'm not here for you. He didn't believe me. Stop pretending, Yao Yao. If you're not here for me, are you really here to treat my brother? He didn't die from the medicine you gave him. He just has good luck. I know. No matter what I say, Shen Xiaobai will never believe me. Everything will be settled once Shen Yanzhi recovers. At that moment, the little thing by my feet suddenly rubbed against my skirt and flipped onto its back, showing its belly in a gesture of goodwill. It was soft and well-behaved, as if it knew I wasn't very happy and was trying to make me laugh. Seeing this, Zhao Jiyue's eyes immediately turned red with grievance. Shen Xiaobai, how can this dog not even tell who its owner is? It bit me, and now it's trying to please someone else. Shen Xiaobai helplessly tried to calm her. It's a bit silly. It's fine. If you don't like it, I'll sell it tomorrow. The little dog retracted its belly and hid by my feet, whimpering. It seemed to understand human speech and was asking for help. I stared at it for a moment, and it gazed back at me with its round black eyes, a bit cautious, then wagged its tail. Fine then. I'll buy it. I took out a silver ingot and handed it to Shen Xiaobai. I'll take this dog. Shen Xiaobai stared at the silver ingot in his palm, dumbfounded. Jiang Yao, what are you doing? I didn't understand his meaning. Buying the dog. Anger surged in his eyes, his voice trembling slightly. Is there anything you want that I haven't given you? Do you really think I need this silver ingot from you? Oh, so it wasn't that he was unwilling to sell the dog to me. It was that he resented the coldness in my attitude toward him. Zhao Jiyue's eyes flickered with jealousy. She suddenly changed her mind, shook Shen Xiaobai's hand, and pretended to be concerned, saying, I heard that the meat of this yellow-eared dog is good for the spleen and stomach. Shen Xiaobai, why don't you not sell it, but turn it into soup and drink it to improve your health? I instinctively pulled the little dog in my arms closer and hugged it tightly. No. What do you mean no? Zhao Jiyue, accustomed to being pampered, coldly laughed and rushed toward me, trying to snatch the dog from my arms. I struggled with Zhao Jiyue, and my maid, trying to protect me, also got into a scuffle with Zhao Jiyue's maid. In the chaos, I suddenly felt a strong push at my waist, and right at my feet was the cold lake water. Zhao Jiyue was trying to push me into the water. I gritted my teeth and let go of the dog, grabbing her clothes at the last moment. Then, with 2 splashes, Zhao Jiyue didn't have a good outcome either, and both of us fell into the pool. Miss, princess. My maid screamed in panic. Zhao Jiyue was frightened, crying out, Help! Shen Xiaobai, save me. The water's too deep. She really is loud. The winter pool water was cold. It was like needles stabbing through my body, unbearably painful. I didn't want to die yet, so I struggled desperately in the icy water. My maid panicked as well, crying out to Shen Xiaobai, Second young master, please help save our miss. She's your fiancé. But amidst the chaos, I heard Shen Xiaobai's voice without a trace of hesitation, commanding, Save the princess first. At that moment, my limbs went stiff, and I choked on a few mouthfuls of water. Shen Xiaobai, so you really don't have a heart. Zhao Jiyue was rescued, while I had exhausted all my strength, unable to move, sinking further into the water. I thought I was going to die. But then I felt a pair of hands that were willing to pull me up. My consciousness was hazy, and I couldn't see who it was. I only remember that the person half dragged, half carried me, swimming upwards. The person's waist was very thin, and when he held me, it felt as though he was using up all his strength. I could tell that he truly wanted to save me. I was given a second chance at life, but I fainted. When I woke up, I was already in new clothes, wrapped in a warm blanket, the scent of medicine filling the air. I got out of bed carefully and walked around the room, observing the furnishings. It was all books. I pretty much knew who it was. Sure enough, the person was lying on the soft couch in the outer room, wrapped in a thick robe, holding a warming pot. He looked weaker than me but had given up his bed for me. He was gently playing with the little dog I had saved. The dog was curled up in his robe, obediently. It was Shen Yanzhi, the lord of the lesser minister. He looked up and met my gaze, smiling gently. "Are you awake? You were soaking wet, choked on water, and fainted. I couldn't carry you too far, so I brought you here. Your maid helped change your clothes." After just a few words, he suddenly started coughing, his pale face looking weak and pitiful, making people feel sorry for him. I instinctively looked at his waist. He was very thin, but his hands felt good. I had touched them underwater. It seems that although he had been poisoned for years, he hadn't completely given up on himself and was still exercising. But today, he had jumped into the cold pool to save me despite his fever. Lord of the Lesser Minister, this month is critical for detoxification. There are so many people in the residence. Please don't risk it by doing such things yourself. He froze for a moment, then lowered his head, looking somewhat reluctant. Oh. If something happened to you because of saving me, I really wouldn't be able to explain it. At this point, Mrs. Shen heard that I had woken up and sent a maid to ask me to come over. Shen Yanzhi was going to follow. But with his current condition, after walking just a few steps, he nearly collapsed. I helped him back to bed to rest. Lord of the Lesser Minister, please wait here until I return. He frowned, reminding me. The Chang'e princess hasn't left yet. I instantly understood his implication. He was worried that if he wasn't around, Zhao Jiyue would trouble me again. I smiled slightly. When the rabbit is cornered, it will bite. How much more so? Lord of the Lesser Minister, I am no rabbit. When I arrived at Mrs. Shen's place, I saw Shen Qiubai kneeling as punishment. Zhao Jiyue was crying beside him, pleading with Mrs. Shen for mercy. Lady Shen appeared gentle, but her words were merciless. Your Highness, we never intended to offend, but you have repeatedly interfered with my son's marriage to the Jiang family, which is unacceptable. The imperial decree is clear, no one can replace it. The Shen family cannot afford to provoke the royal family, but I am the one who raises and teaches my son. How can others interfere? Zhao Jiyue's expression stiffened. I only pity second master. He cannot kneel like this. Lady Shen sneered. He is my son, and no matter how much you pity him, can you surpass me? Zhao Jiyue was at a loss for words. It was at this moment that I entered the room. I saw Shen Qiubai kneeling on the floor. Upon seeing me, his brows furrowed, and his voice was hoarse. Yao, I wanted to save you, but the princess. I glanced at him. Shen Qiubai, it's fine. I understand everything. He choked, clearly flustered, his eyes showing panic. No, Yao. The situation was complicated, and the princess can't swim. I can't swim either. After saying this, I passed by him indifferently, not sparing him another glance. His unfinished words stuck in his throat, and he couldn't utter another sound. Lady Shen held my hand, her face filled with guilt. Yao, you're awake at last. It's all Shen Qiubai's fault for not being careful. I've punished him. Don't be angry. In the future? Lady Shen probably felt awkward, but she still said, in the future, we must still be like a family. I didn't stubbornly argue about right or wrong like before. Instead, I smiled reassuringly. I'm not angry, Aunt Shen, really. I understand the princess's status. Lady Shen's face immediately changed. Zhao Jiyue shot me a resentful glance, holding back tears as she forced a magnanimous tone. Miss Jiang, I won't fight with you over the dog anymore. As for second master, he says his health is poor and he doesn't want me to live alone after his death, so he will not marry me. I'll leave now and return him to you, if that's all right. She spoke of returning him, but her eyes were filled with triumph. She wanted to provoke me, hoping I would lose my composure in front of Lady Shen. But she miscalculated. I simply looked up calmly. No need to return him. I don't want him.
What?
Zhao Jue froze. Shen Xiaobai stood up, his face dark, walking toward me. His gaze was cold, holding back anger as he gripped my hand. Jiang Yao, say that again. His grip was on my right hand. That hand, once tender, had wiped his tears, fed him medicine, and blocked knives. Now it was covered in cracked scars, ugly and painful. I yanked my hand back, hiding it in my sleeve, and looked up at Shen Xiaobai, offering a polite smile. Shen Xiaobai, second master, it was my fault for being too forward before. I won't bother you anymore, nor will I trouble you. I've brought everything you gave me, and I'll return it all. I waved my hand, and a servant quickly brought over a large chest. I opened it myself. Inside were the letters he had written to me over the years, bamboo carvings he gave me, the rabbit lantern he made for me, the kites he crafted, the grass crickets he wove. One by one, they were all laid before him. This chest, once full of precious things, had once held his youthful, passionate love for me. Now, those items had lost their meaning, becoming nothing more than burdensome junk. I threw it all at him. Shen Xiaobai, you are free now, and so am I. Shen Xiaobai stared at the items in shock for a long time, his eyes reddening. Jiang Yao, what do you mean? You want to break off the engagement? Do you dare? I didn't respond, only turned to Lady Shen, who looked surprised. Aunt Shen, I won't drink the soup. The eldest master's health isn't well. I'll go see him first. Jiang Yao, Shen Xiaobai called out, his voice trembling, every word almost breaking in his mouth. Don't regret it. I didn't respond or look back. Shen Xiaobai, you'd better not regret it. When I returned to Shen Yanzhi's courtyard, he was sitting on a soft couch, gazing out of the half-open window, seemingly waiting for something. When our eyes met through the window, he smiled warmly, like the spring breeze. I hurried over and closed the window tightly. Lord Shaoqing, your fever is recurring, and you've caught a chill after falling into the water. You shouldn't leave the window open.
All right.
This time, he obediently agreed. But his pale face, tinged with a sickly flush, made it clear that he was in poor condition, still trying to hold on. This was the biggest difference between Shen Yanzhi and Shen Xiaobai. One, so sick he refused to make a sound, the other, always evoking sympathy and pity. A servant brought medicine, and I took it, intending to feed it to Shen Yanzhi myself. But when I raised my hand, I saw the ugly scar on my right hand. I hesitated for a moment, then decided against it. Lord Shaoqing, you should drink it yourself. Watching me take the spoon and then put it down, Shen Yanzhi's expression went from hopeful to disappointed. He smiled, albeit weakly. All right, I'll drink it myself. He took the bowl, holding it with both hands, sipping it slowly. It didn't seem like he was drinking bitter medicine. It almost seemed like he was drinking porridge. It was unexpectedly cute. As I watched him drink the medicine, everything I had planned to say suddenly slipped my mind. I instinctively spoke up. Shen Yanzhi, will you marry me?
But
The usually composed man suddenly choked on the medicine, coughing so violently that he couldn't catch his breath. Jiang Yao, you cough. I was a bit embarrassed. But since the question was out, I had to continue. My mother taught me how to manage a household. I can help you with your finances and take care of the inner chambers. I'm skilled in medicine, so I can care for your health. I also know the arts of the guqin, chess, painting, and calligraphy, as well as ceremonies and celebrations. I'll never embarrass you. It's just my right hand has some old scars. They might not look very good, but I hope you won't mind. Shen Yanzhi, you saved me today, and I'm very grateful. But could you save me again? I wanted to tell him. If it weren't for the imperial marriage, I was originally a noble girl with no worries about marriage, pampered and adored. But I would rather die than marry Shen Xiaobai again. He betrayed me, hurt me, humiliated me. I don't want to live with him, growing to loathe each other, and I certainly don't want to be buried in the same grave with him after death. Shen Yanzhi quietly listened, his gaze deep as he looked at me for a while. Did you cry? Unexpectedly, He held my hand and wiped away the tears I had been holding back for so long. His voice was soft, almost a sigh, teasing and tempting. Don't cry. Tomorrow, I'll have my mother send a marriage proposal to your family. I looked up at him, shocked, my tearful eyes meeting his. Then he smiled again, pointing at the medicine bowl with a little grievance. Then now, as your betrothed husband, could you also feed me medicine? Just like you fed him before. Everything felt dreamlike. I had prepared myself to face countless thorns, but never expected that my engagement to Shen Yanzhi would go so smoothly. Madame Shen had no objections. My mother was delighted, her happiness apparent. Though our marriage had started as a transaction, it gave the impression that it had happened naturally. Both families were busy preparing, but only Shen Xiaobai didn't believe that I would actually marry his older brother. At first, he sulked and accused me. Jiang Yao, you're trying to provoke me, flirting with my brother. You have no shame? I ignored him, but he wouldn't give up. When he saw that I was avoiding him, he shamelessly knocked on my window. Yao Yao, have you had enough of making trouble? I know you're mad and jealous, but I already promised you I wouldn't marry Yaya. I'm not blaming you for poisoning Big Yellow anymore. That day, you and Yaya fell into the water, and I did save her first, but that was because of her identity. Day after day, he kept pestering me, making it impossible for me to sleep. Unfortunately, he was stubborn, and the servants were afraid to drive him away. I had no choice but to go see him again. But when I did, he was deliberately dressed in thin clothes, looking pitifully frail as he stood outside in the icy cold, his voice weak and helpless. Yao Yao, stop being angry. You wanted me to take the medicine, right? Bring it here. Even if it's poison, I'll take it now. After I take it, we'll make up, okay? Finally willing to take my medicine? But I told him, the antidote is gone. He was stunned for a moment. What do you mean, gone? I couldn't help but give a mocking smile and told him the truth. Shen Xiaobai, I can't make the antidote anymore because the most important ingredient is the flower stamen of the Yundian Lanqi. Yundian Lanqi is a rare and precious flower cultivated by the medical saint of the previous dynasty, and there's only one in the world. That flower is kept in the palace, and it's carefully tended by dedicated staff. It takes 10 years for one flower to bloom. I begged the empress for half a month before she agreed to give me the flower for the sake of saving the Shen family's son. I carefully mixed it, using every part of the flower, and barely managed to make 2 pills. Shen Xiaobai, but when I offered it to you, you fed it to the dog. And now, you won't see another flower for the next 10 years. Shen Xiaobai suddenly looked up, his eyes filled with disbelief. He gripped my hand tightly, the cold touch of his fingertips sending a chill through me. Yao Yao, you're lying to me. If there's really only one antidote, how could you not save it for me? His eyes were red, almost going mad. See, the painful knife only cuts deep when it's turned on him. I pried his fingers off one by one. Let go, Shen Xiaobai. In 3 months, I'll be your sister-in-law. That night, Shen Xiaobai stood outside my door for most of the night, frozen and still. No matter how much I tried to persuade him, he wouldn't leave. No one knew what he was thinking. Finally, he collapsed, frozen and unconscious in the snow, and was carried back. I, on the other hand, finally slept well. Under my care, Shen Yanzhi's health began to improve. He had a government position, and even while sick, he was always busy, with piles of documents on his desk. Jin Fu really liked Shen Yanzhi. Whenever he read papers, Jin Fu would curl up by his side, sleeping and basking in the sun. Oh, Jin Fu is the little dog. I wanted to call it Little Jin, but Shen Yanzhi called it Little Fu. In the end, it became Little Jin Fu. Gradually, I discovered a side of Shen Yanzhi that no one knew about. It turned out that he wasn't just good at reading. He was also skilled in mechanics, knife skills, and swordsmanship. No wonder he appeared weak but dared to jump into the pool to save someone. His waist was still slender but strong. It seemed that in his role at the Greatly Court, dealing with the most vicious criminals, practicing martial arts was indeed beneficial. I casually asked him, Shen Yanzhi, with your body, How did you manage to practice swordsmanship every day back then? If it were Shen Xiaobai, he'd be bedridden for days just from a gust of wind. It was easy to imagine how difficult it must have been for Shen Yanzhi, whose body was even worse and who was poisoned, to practice martial arts. Shen Yanzhi lowered his head. When I was little, I lost control and coughed up blood in front of others, scaring a little girl who wanted to give me candy. Since then, that girl has been avoiding me, crying every time she saw me. Later, I noticed that she liked watching people twirl swords, so I decided to practice swordsmanship to impress her. I curiously asked, "Did you manage to win her over in the end?" He smiled bitterly. By the time I got good at swordsmanship, she was already with someone else, so I didn't need to impress her anymore. It seemed that things didn't go well between him and that girl. Otherwise, why would he agree to marry me? I understood his regret and, as a gesture of comfort, took a pear lozenge from my sleeve and fed it to him, saying, "Don't be sad. In the future, you can twirl your sword for me, and I can make candy for you to eat, just like she did." Coincidentally, when I was little, I also liked watching people twirl swords and loved giving candy to others. Shen Yanzhi froze, looking at me, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly. As the pear lozenge melted in his mouth, his eyes unexpectedly misted over with a faint sheen of tears. "I know you like it." "What?" He awkwardly turned his head away. "Nothing, the candy is really sweet." A month later, the head physician of the Imperial Medical Institute personally came to check on Shen Yanzhi's pulse. "Congratulations, Master Shaoqing. There is no more poison in your body. With proper care, you will be fine for the rest of your life." Madame Shen, who had been listening, burst into tears and excitement. Even the young servant cheered joyfully, shouting, "Young Master is fine. Miss Jiang really cured young Master's poison." The sound of happy congratulations echoed through the house like magpies announcing good news. It was rare for me to see that kind of smile on Shen Yanzhi's face, his long eyelashes brushing slightly, like the melting of snow, the spring breeze blowing, and all things awakening. But that smile was fleeting. When I tried to look again, his brows and eyes had darkened with a trace of melancholy. Jiang Yao. At that moment, I didn't understand. Was he jealous? Now that our engagement had been settled, with the wedding just 2 months away, I didn't want any complications. So I tugged at his sleeve and gave him a soft smile. "But Shen Yanzhi, the person who took the last pill was you. The person I want to marry is also you." I was good at comforting people. Thankfully, Shen Yanzhi seemed quite good at being comforted too. With just a little effort, he was like a cat whose fur had been smoothed, content and happy. He lowered his head, his pale skin tinted with a faint blush. But his voice was muffled, as though holding something back. "But you still can't remember me, can you?" I loosened my grip on his sleeve, stunned. "What?" Shen Yanzhi sighed lightly and didn't explain further. He simply said, "Jiang Yao, if you want to comfort me in the future, don't just tug at my sleeve. I have hands." With that, his long fingers closed slightly, and his large hand grasped mine. The warmth of his touch sent a sudden jolt through my heart. "Okay." My mother asked me to return home to prepare for my wedding. Before I left, Madame Shen, unwilling to give up, inquired if there was really no second antidote. After receiving my confirmation, she slumped into a chair, overwhelmed with emotion, and began crying uncontrollably. For Madame Shen, both Shen Xiaobai and Shen Yanzhi were equally important. Losing one meant gaining the other, and the conflicting emotions made her both happy and heartbroken. The day I left, Shen Xiaobai's poison flared up. Madame Shen hesitantly asked me if I could go see him again. "Just say 2 words to him, that's all. He's been calling your name in his sickness." I didn't agree. Shen Xiaobai's poison flared every month, and the attacks would only become more frequent. I couldn't visit him every time. In the end, my carriage was stopped. It was Shen Xiaobai chasing after me. He was wearing a loose outer robe, barefoot, walking through the snow as if he didn't feel the cold, stumbling toward me. Finally, he pressed his hand to his chest, gasping painfully. "Jiang Yao, do you hate me this much? Do you want to become this distant from me? Are you really going to not even look at me again? Shen Xiaobai's appearance was indeed striking. If Shen Yanzhi was like a celestial being, then Shen Xiaobai was a stunning beauty from the mortal realm. Especially when he showed vulnerability, his gloomy eyes would turn into fragile, tearful glass. This was his tactic to make others pity him. I turned around, staring at him steadily. Endless pestering is nothing but self-degradation. Shen Xiaobai, you once said this to me, didn't you? Have you forgotten? Today, I returned those words to him. I also offered a suggestion. If you really need someone to keep you company, maybe you should go ask Zhao Jiyue. He looked like a lost soul, swaying as if on the brink of collapse. But I only want you. Will you come back? He opened his palm to reveal a smooth jade hairpin, delicately carved with a simple but intricate cloud pattern. He pointed to the back of the hairpin, where 8 tiny characters were engraved, his eyes reddening as if he were clutching a treasure. To celebrate your coming of age, may you have fortune, happiness, and health. Yao Yao, I found this in that box. This was the gift you prepared for me for my coming-of-age ceremony, wasn't it? I lowered my head and glanced at it. It was he who had said before. Yao Yao, when I marry you, I'll wear the hairpin you gave me for my coming-of-age ceremony and wear the shoes you gave me. That way, from head to toe, I, Shen Xiaobai, would belong to you, Jiang Yao. At that time, he was still 17, 3 years away from his coming-of-age ceremony. The jade hairpin was something I had prepared in advance, meant to be given to him when he turned 20. As for the shoes, I had made only half, but then I couldn't finish them. Because that year, my right hand was cut by his knife, and I became disabled. He used to say I had nimble hands. But thanks to that one knife, I could no longer stitch beautiful patterns or carve delicate jade. I had long since thrown away the shoes, and the hairpin had been carelessly placed in a box, forgotten. Now I didn't need to give it to him anymore. I sighed. Throw it away, Shen Xiaobai. It's no longer useful. But he clutched it tightly, as if holding some rare treasure. No, this is mine. You gave it to me, and I'll never throw it away. Do as you wish. I tried to walk away, but Shen Xiaobai gently tugged at the corner of my sleeve, his voice almost pleading. Yao Yao, don't marry him. You used to say you would only marry me. I pulled my sleeve free and looked at his pale face. But Shen Xiaobai, I also said, I don't want to become a widow. Upon hearing this, his gaze dimmed, and he staggered back a step, suddenly coughing uncontrollably. In the end, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The bright red stained his white clothes. He held the jade hairpin, his tears and blood mixing, his heart in agony. In that moment, he finally realized what kind of girl he had wronged over the years. That girl would no longer care about whether he was cold or in pain. She wouldn't blame him for being caught in the rain or cry with worry over his injuries. She had truly, completely let him go. I spent the entire last month of the lunar year waiting to get married in my room. However, something big happened in the capital recently, an uproar that shook everything. The Prince of Ning's residence has fallen. When my mother spoke of it, she was nearly jumping for joy, as if releasing a long-held grudge. Yao Yao, this is all your good husband's doing. That kid, Shen Yanzhi, really lives up to being the son-in-law I chose. It turned out that Shen Yanzhi had been investigating a rebellion plot from over 10 years ago, specifically the mastermind behind the poisoning of him and Shen Xiaobai. The emperor had appointed him as the Minister of Justice to give him more authority and support. The Prince of Ning had kept his hands clean at the time, holding great power, making it difficult to bring him down. Only now did Shen Yanzhi collaborate with the emperor, patiently building his strategy over many years. Finally, everything was swept away in one night. What my mother was really concerned about, though, was this. Yao Yao, wasn't Shen Xiaobai always tangled up with that princess Zhao Jiyue? Who would have thought that her father, the king, was the one who had poisoned them? It must be that heaven has eyes, and a heartless person is finally betrayed by others. Zhao Jiyue had always pretended to be carefree and innocent in front of Shen Xiaobai. But in reality, as a princess, she had long been accustomed to bullying others, her hands stained with blood. Now that the Prince of Ning had fallen, Zhao Jiyue, as his daughter, was also facing her downfall. She was stripped of her title and sentenced to be made a commoner. The last time I saw her was on the busy street. She refused to lower herself and sing for customers, so she was kicked to the street. As she was dragged down by the passing Shen Xiaobai, she clung to his sleeve, crying out to him, "Shen Xiaobai, please save me. I'm innocent. The one who plotted the rebellion and poisoned you was my father, not me. I didn't know anything. What does his crime have to do with me? My love for you is real." But Shen Xiaobai coldly pulled away from her desperate grasp. "Don't touch me. If Yao Yao finds out, she won't be happy." "Look at that, Shen Xiaobai. Turns out, you do know that when you get entangled with other women, I get upset and cry. But what you don't know is, now, how do you even deserve me? I've long stopped caring." In the end, Zhao Jiyue was left in a disheveled state, penniless, reduced to fighting with dogs for scraps. Sitting in a tea house, I watched this scene from afar and suddenly remembered the days when Zhao Jiyue had been admired by everyone, like a star in the sky. Times have changed, and so have people's hearts. Now, not a single person would bother to give her a hot bun. Shen Xiaobai's illness was getting worse. When he couldn't see me, he sent a servant with letters. He said he had dreamt of Jiangnan, where he bought a large house for me, planted trees and flowers for me. But in the dream, he searched everywhere and couldn't find me. He said he might not live to the age of 20 and wouldn't be able to wear the jade hairpin I gave him. He pleaded with me, "Yao Yao, at least before I die, don't marry anyone else, okay?" The servant, moved by his suffering, wiped his tears and said to me, "Miss Jiang, you're a good person. It's all our second young master's fault. He has realized his mistakes and is facing the consequences. Please have pity on him and fulfill his wish. He's often suffering from his illness, coughing up blood, and cannot stop. He might not even make it to 25. He just hopes that, at least before he closes his eyes, you won't marry someone else. Otherwise, he will go mad." I listened quietly, then turned around, expressionless, and tossed the letter into the fire. The wedding date had been set, and the matchmaker's work was done. I had once desperately tried to save him, waited for him, but back then, he was too busy with other women and wouldn't marry me. Now, I had already passed the age of waiting for marriage. Whether he lived or died had nothing to do with me anymore. Shen Xiaobai, your every word of sorrow is worthless to me now. It's just a handful of black ashes. The 10th day of the first lunar month was an auspicious day, perfect for weddings and for praying for wealth and children. Snow had stopped, the skies cleared, and things turned around. I married Shen Yanzhi. The crown prince and princess came to congratulate us, and the empress sent gifts. She gave me a red hairpin, one that had been her wedding gift when she entered the palace. On the night of the wedding, Shen Yanzhi buried his chin in the crook of my neck and softly called me wife. His voice was full of tenderness, like an enchantment, calling again and again. Seeing how pitiful he seemed, I nodded in response. But he wasn't pitiful at all. After that night, I was the one who felt sorry for myself. The next day, my waist ached, and I had to lean against the wall to walk. Lady Shen watched us living happily together and was quite pleased. But then, as she looked on, she couldn't help but tear up, sighing with sorrow. If only Qiubai could get better and marry a wife, life would be so much better. At times like this, I would remain silent. After I married Shen Yanzhi, the only inconvenience was that the heads of the Shen family were still alive, so the younger generation couldn't live separately. I tried to avoid running into Shen Qiubai as much as I could. But since we were both living under the same roof, eventually we would cross paths. The Shen family had a peach orchard at the back of the house. In the warm March, the peach blossoms were in full bloom. Shen Yanzhi, who had never tasted wine before due to his poor health, now that he was better, said he wanted to try the wine I brewed myself. So I took my maid and little Jinfu to pick peach blossoms. As we entered the orchard, Jinfu suddenly started barking loudly in one direction. I sensed something was wrong and was about to turn back when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Yao Yao, are you here to see the peach blossoms too?" He still stubbornly refused to call me his sister-in-law. At this point, if I left, it would seem too deliberate. So, I stopped, turned around with a smile, and said casually, "Yes, my husband is craving wine, so I'm picking flowers to make it. Your younger brother has such a good mood?" It had been months since I had seen Shen Yanzhi. He was now so thin it was alarming. Standing under the peach blossoms, he looked pale, with skin stretched tight over his bones. He still had that jade hairpin in his hair. I suddenly regretted it. I should have snatched the hairpin from him and broken it directly. Now, he was using it comfortably, but I couldn't help but feel a bit repulsed. Shen Yanzhi lowered his eyes and glanced at the basket of peach blossoms I was carrying. His gaze was murky, and he smiled bitterly. I just haven't been able to see the person I want to see, so I came to look at the flowers she likes. I forced a smile, not reaching my eyes. "Oh, then uncle, please continue. I won't disturb you. I'll go look elsewhere." With that, I still tugged the maid along, holding the dog, walking briskly away. Thankfully, it seemed Shen Yanzhi had resigned himself to fate. He didn't stop me or say anything further. He just stood there for a long time, watching me leave. That day, the peach blossom wine never got made. When Shen Yanzhi returned home and saw my dejected face, he glanced at the wooden basket by my side, barely touched, with only a few flowers picked, and guessed the reason. "Did you run into him?" he asked casually. I nodded truthfully. Yes. He was the head of the Dali Temple and had seen all kinds of criminals every day. His ability to discern lies was excellent, so there was no need for me to hide it. Shen Yanzhi rarely hesitated, but he still spoke. The imperial physician came to see him. "He doesn't have much time left." I nodded. Although I no longer personally checked Shen Yanzhi's pulse, I knew his condition well enough. Seeing his face today, I could tell. This was probably his last year. It's fine. Once he's gone, I won't have to be so careful anymore, always fearing I might run into him at any corner. The things that had happened between Shen Yanzhi and me were too well known. As my husband, Shen Yanzhi didn't speak of it, but I could tell he was still a little sad. Whenever he was sad, at night, he would hug me tightly, asking me to kiss him and say sweet things. That wasn't a big deal. I'd comfort him, and that was it. But after the sweet words were over, he would still ask me to pose in certain ways. This part was really tough on my waist. This time, I thought I had comforted him enough, but a few days later, Shen Yanzhi threw a deed and a set of keys into my hands. Because of the work I did in the Ningguang's conspiracy case, the emperor rewarded me with a new residence. He has allowed me to move there with my wife. My father and mother also agree. I stood there, stunned, staring at him. Move with my wife? Even though he had always treated me well, I didn't expect him to go this far just to avoid putting me in a difficult position, disregarding public gossip, and asking for such a huge favor. Shen Yanzhi smiled gently, his lips curving. He kissed my eyes. Why the surprise? "Jiang Yao, didn't I tell you? I want you to live the most comfortable life." I started preparing to move. However, while packing Shen Yanzhi's study, I stumbled upon an unexpected discovery. I found a hidden room. It was normal for someone like Shen Yanzhi, now a close official to the emperor, to have a secret room holding many secrets. But the hidden room didn't contain confidential case files that couldn't be seen, but all my portraits, from when I was a child to when I was at the age of a budding woman. And there were some paintings that were too seductive, so much so that I blushed upon seeing them. I was completely puzzled. I knew that Shen Yanzhi had excellent painting skills. It was fine after we married, but why did he have paintings of me when I was a child? The papers showed signs of age. These paintings seemed to have been made quite some time ago. I left the hidden room with a flushed face. And just then, I ran into one of Shen Yanzhi's trusted servants. He was pacing around with a worried look. It seemed that Shen Yanzhi had never allowed anyone into that hidden room, but this time, he had slipped up and I had accidentally walked in. This servant had been with Shen Yanzhi since childhood. Seeing that it was impossible to hide it anymore, the servant simply told me, "Madam, do you remember 11 years ago, at the royal banquet, when envoys from a foreign country insulted our young master, saying he was so sick and weak that he couldn't even lift a sword, and mocked him, saying he looked like a woman? I vaguely recalled something. But 11 years was too long ago, and I had forgotten the details. The servant sighed. Yes, you were still young back then, so it's normal for you to have forgotten. But our young master remembers. That year, he was ridiculed and humiliated. He wanted to argue, but his throat was damaged from being sick, and he couldn't even speak. It was you who, disregarding etiquette, rushed out. Your small arms and legs kicked and punched, and you embarrassed the foreign envoy. You even said, "Life has a limit." Today, those who think they are long-lived might face disaster tomorrow. Even if life is short, one can still make their mark. Those who only mock others' pain will never understand that, in 10 years, Shen's older brother will be known not only as a great man in life, but also a heroic spirit after death. I suddenly remembered. At that time, while other girls only learned needlework, my father personally taught me the 4 books, 5 classics, and the strategies of the spring and autumn annals. I was young and couldn't memorize them well, often falling asleep during lessons. But something still seeped into my heart unconsciously. So, when I saw Shen Yanzhi being mocked, I couldn't help but rush out to argue. The servant continued. All these years, the young master has always remembered your words and has never let them go. If it weren't for you, the young master might have died long ago. How could there be today's Shen Yanzhi, praised by the world, the young lord of Dali Temple? My heart pounded wildly. In a daze, memories I had long lost began to resurface, piece by piece. I remembered the candy I had wanted to give to Shen Yanzhi after the banquet. I also remembered myself crying when I saw him suddenly fall ill and spit blood. So, it turns out, the girl Shen Yanzhi had mentioned, the one he secretly liked but didn't have time to comfort, was actually me. In late autumn, Shen Yanzhi and I moved to our new home. At that time, I was already 3 months pregnant. On the day we left, Shen Yanzhi stumbled out again. He had grown even thinner. "I'm sorry, Yao Yao. I didn't want to disturb you, but..." He looked at me with red eyes, his voice hoarse. I didn't want to linger, so I gave a perfunctory smile and was about to leave. But I heard Shen Yanzhi say again, "Congratulations on moving to your new home with your brother. May your home be filled with autumn fragrance, and may you walk hand in hand for 100 years. Elder sister-in-law." At the end, he choked on the last words. This was the first time that Shen Yanzhi was willing to change how he addressed me. I paused in my steps. Perhaps Shen Yanzhi knew this was most likely our last meeting. Thinking back on the past, I turned around to look at him and smiled. "Life is never truly perfect," I said. "Shen Yanzhi, let the past scatter like clouds. You need not remain sorrowful." He was dying. I didn't want, after I spent 100 years with Shen Yanzhi, once I crossed to the Yellow Springs, to encounter Shen Yanzhi again blocking my way. If he could let go, it would be best. After speaking, I didn't look back at him, but turned around to walk toward my jealous husband. I saw Shen Yanzhi sitting in the carriage, lazily propping up his sword, waiting for me, looking at me. When our eyes met, he smiled and extended his hand toward me. I gave him my hand. "Shen Yanzhi, moving is so exhausting. I want to eat the little taro chicken at Jiangdong Pavilion and drink fish head tofu soup." He led me onto the carriage, coaxing me patiently. Let's go eat." "Shen Yanzhi, I want to eat fresh apricots. Go to the apricot grove in the southern village of the capital and pick them for me. The apricots there are the best." "All right, I'll get the apricots." "Shen Yanzhi, did you like me actually from a very long time ago?" There was a slight pause, and suddenly the young lord holding the sword realized something, his ears turning red. After a moment, he gently spoke. I like you very much." At that moment, amidst the bustling market and the setting sun, he lowered his eyes, the corners of his lips lifting, like a spring breeze. I saw the most beautiful scenery.
Shen Yanzhi.
The heavens are too high, and the Yellow Springs too cold. But in the world, there's you, and it's just right. End of main story. Extra story. Shen Qiubai. The first time Shen Qiubai saw Jiang Yao, he was captivated. It was a winter night, and the young girl was wrapped in a bright red cotton jacket, as beautiful as a porcelain doll, entangling her mother to buy a rabbit lantern. She was quite adorable, though a little chubby. At that time, Shen Qiubai was with a few other aristocratic youths, and upon seeing this, he couldn't help but smile at her. Little chubby girl. Shen Qiubai thought there was no malice in the name, and even felt a little fond of her. But he didn't expect that, due to his status, someone misunderstood it as mockery. The rumor spread, and soon, other brash boys started calling Jiang Yao little chubby girl, and even made more cruel jokes. The young girl's face would turn red with anger every time. Shen Qiubai thought her flushed face was even more adorable. So, with an unknown sentiment, he quietly allowed all of this to continue. When his mother celebrated her birthday, many people came to the banquet. The Jiang family had always been close with the Shen family, so Jiang Yao attended as well. As expected, she was once again teased in public. This time, she couldn't hold her composure and ended up crying. It was then that his older brother, Shen Yanzhi, appeared. Shen Qiubai, do me a favor. She's crying. Go comfort her, will you? At that moment, Shen Yanzhi looked at Jiang Yao from a distance, his voice strained and his expression forlorn. Shen Qiubai didn't understand. Why don't you do it yourself? Because I scared her before. If she sees me, she might cry even harder. It turned out that after the incident at the palace banquet, where Shen Yanzhi had fallen ill and vomited blood, Jiang Yao was traumatized by the sight. Since then, whenever she saw Shen Yanzhi, she would avoid him. If she couldn't, she would break down in tears. Back then, she had been so brave, arguing with foreign emissaries, her courage astonishing. But in the end, she was still a little girl who needed protection. Shen Yanzhi felt helpless and could only suppress his feelings and avoid appearing in front of her. Yet he still couldn't help but want to see her, want to care for her. So, he entrusted it to Shen Qiubai. Thus, when others teased Jiang Yao again, Shen Qiubai didn't just stand by. Instead, he stepped in to protect her. Jiang Yao blinked her bright eyes and thanked him. Shen Qiubai, thank you. Shen Qiubai turned his head away, feeling guilty. Jiang Yao's voice was so soft, her admiration almost overflowing from her eyes. Shen Qiubai didn't dare to tell her that she should thank his brother, Shen Yanzhi, not him. He also didn't dare to tell her that he was the one who had bullied her in the first place. After that, Jiang Yao liked to follow him around. She was open and radiant, never hiding her affection for him. She would cry red-eyed like a rabbit when his illness acted up. She would hurt her legs while collecting herbs she wasn't even sure would help him, but still treasure them dearly. She would get angry at him for getting caught in the rain or drinking too much wine. He drowned in her grand love, slowly losing himself. He forgot that, from the very beginning, this love wasn't meant for him. It was stolen from his brother. He would always remember the first time his brother saw them holding hands, frozen in place, with eyes that nearly shattered. That night, after his brother returned to his room, he fell ill and was bedridden for half a month. Shen Qiubai felt guilty, self-blaming, and lost, but he still couldn't give up on Jiang Yao. Until his brother said to him, Jiang Yao likes you. I can see it. Shen Qiubai, you must treat her well. Make her laugh, never bully her, never make her cry. Otherwise, I will not sit idly by. Shen Qiubai promised earnestly. When people make promises, they speak from the heart at that moment. But when they change their hearts, they do so with equal sincerity. Shen Qiubai never imagined that he would, again and again, hurt Jiang Yao. Jiang Yao loved him too much. He always thought no matter what he did, Jiang Yao would continue to love him just the same. So when his brother appeared in the moon viewing tower, standing protectively in front of Jiang Yao, he panicked, because he suddenly remembered the way his brother had made him swear those words all those years ago. Time passed, but his brother's love for Jiang Yao had never faded. And he, Shen Qiubai, had broken his vow. Later, Zhang Yao returned all the memories between them to him. And later still, Zhang Yao told him that the antidote had only 2 doses, and the one meant for him was fed to the dog by his own hand. His brother survived, and he was going to die. Refusing to accept it, he found his brother and frantically asked him why he had come to steal Zhang Yao from him. But his brother only said one thing. Shen Yanzhi, only sincerity can exchange for sincerity. Sincerity? Shen Yanzhi smiled weakly. He had once had it, but he lost it. From that moment on, no one stood with him at dusk. No one asked if his porridge was warm. No one wiped away his tears of longing. No one accompanied him to gaze at the stars. Shen Yanzhi died alone. He died in the spring of his 19th year. He never lived to see his coming of age. The servants spread the word. Young Master Shen held a jade hairpin in his hand as he passed, muttering her name, the name of his eldest brother's wife. End of the full text.